Yeah, it was crazy just talking about that little moment of going a bit soft and sentimental over the week. It started off. I had a recording, not a recording, a cardboard box of stuff in the cellar, sort of like the bunker underneath the auditorium. And this old cardboard box, probably like a beer crate size cardboard box. And this thing was full of old plastic bags that had just gathered dust. And you know how things are when they get stuck in the cellar. And I've sort of known about this cardboard box, and I thought it had bits and pieces that were left over from when we put the electric fence up. And I'd kept that stuff thinking, well, if ever there's a breach of the fence or the fence needs some repair, at least I know where all of the stuff is sort of bunkered down in the bottom in the basement. But then I went and I was looking for something else, and I pulled this cardboard box out, and I thought, what is this old cardboard box about? And when I opened it up, it had my dad's old 35mm slide projector in it. And in all the plastic bags were all of these little, there's Pam coming in now. It had all of these 35mm slides that he had taken. And he had religiously taken these slides right the way through our lives. And there's pictures of myself and my sister and our family occasions, weddings and one thing and another. And that became this nostalgic trip. I was sort of like ferreted all of this out. And it was like, wow, so emotional going through it all and projecting the stuff onto the wall. And then I thought, how am I ever going to record or transcribe some of this, these old 35mm slides into digital form? There's got to be some kind of scanner that I could buy, because there's literally hundreds of these things. So that's a mission of mine. But one thing led to another. Hi, Pam. I'm sure you can see us by now. We can't see you yet, and we can't hear you, but we just keep waving at you. Yeah, so one thing led to another. And hello, Pam. There's Pam coming in. Hello, Pam. You need to unmute your video for us. Or I can try and do it from here for you. Somewhere along the way, you'll get a request to unmute your video. Anyway, so having found this box of slides from my dad, then I remember that I had some other boxes lying around. There we see you, Pam. Nice forehead. Maybe you need to tilt your screen a little bit so that we can see your eyes, Pam. Your forehead's just as good. Anyway, so yeah, as I was saying, I went on a witch hunt then, and then up in the attic in the A-frame house, I found another cardboard box, and this had all of the letters that I've ever received. I don't know why I hoarded this stuff. It's just like weird. There we go. Every little tag that came off of every little present, every letter that I got from somebody, from my grandma who died 40 years ago. All of these things are just kept, and I started scanning all of these memorabilia of these things, and it's been this like journey of note, and it's interesting to put all of this together. So over the last week, I've been writing an application now on a web browser that allows one to create a timeline. I'll show it to you one day. It allows you to create a timeline, and then hidden behind scenes is a database of that brings all of the pictures together in this timeline. And I'm trying to now put it all in one space, and it's quite an interesting task to do. But anyway, that's where all that nostalgia came from. That sort of leaked into the circle of friends over the week, and that was like quite a journey, I must say. The other thing that I've been battling with a little bit of late is my mom. She's coming up 91 and a half now, and she's kind of understood because everybody is talking about it. She's in a frail care facility in Boksburg, and she's kind of understanding that there's this virus, and it's a bit like the Spanish flu, and no one can come to see her, and all of those things sort of she gets it. You can hear that there's waves of despondency that sort of come and go in her voice, and she wants that human contact. But she's in a place in life where she's just, dementia is getting to her, and her past memory, her memory of what happened, years back, is crystal clear. If I mention one of the letters that I dug out of the attic and say, by the way, I see my grandfather had a bit of a feud with my aunt, 30, 40 years ago, and they lived in Gunubi down in the Eastern Cape. Is that true? My mom will just pick up on that story and she'll go with it, and she'll give all the background storyline to it in crystal clear detail. And she'll just go on for half an hour, all of the impeccable memory that she's got. But then I'll say to her, so what did you have for breakfast? And she says, they never feed us here. We haven't eaten for days. All of the staff, she's a bit racist. She says, all the staff are just taking all of this food and taking it home. They don't have food because of the virus. So she gets the virus bit, but then she says they're all taking the food home. And for like about 4 days, I haven't eaten at all. And then she says, but one good thing is that they've put us on a bus and they took us to Rustenburg. And we went to a hotel and we had this fantastic lunch. And then we went from Rustenburg to the Agrabis Falls, and we saw the Agrabis Falls and the daisy fields. And they brought us back here by supper time. It's like, oh, shame. How nice. What can you do? You don't. But she's blind. She's in a wheelchair. So all that she's got is these things that come and go. And so when I spoke to her, like about Wednesday or so, I said, how are you doing, Mum? She says, I changed my name. I said, you changed your name? Why did you change your name? She says, I don't want to be called Budge anymore. I said, why? She says, I've gone back to my maiden name. I'm Yvonne Sinclair. I said, why? She says, here, just at the little coffee shop, your father has come. Now, my dad died in 2000. But she says, your father's here. And can you credit it that he would come and live in the same block of flats as I am, that I'm living in? And he's here with his 18-year-old wife and his little baby, this little baby girl. And she describes this little baby girl. She's got a name for this little baby girl. She knows the name of the wife. This is like all really crazy for her. And it's all very, very real. It's like, but Mum, then I try and do the sanity check for her. And I said, but Mum, how can that be? He died a long time ago, and I recount elements of the story to her of how he died and what happened. And can you hear me now? Because I see a little note popping up. Check your connection. Use a different speaker. Anyway, it'll find itself. So long as you can hear me, that's all okay. So she says, sanity check on the storyline for my mom. How do you reconcile all of this? It just doesn't make sense, Mom. Because we buried him. His ashes are put here on the farm. There's a special place in the garden where she has very often come and sat, just in memory of him. And she says, yeah, I know that, but it's still, it's very unkind of him for him just to come here with his young wife. And why would he do that when he knows that, I'm here? So it's this funny, sad little story of how this brain is just not functioning properly anymore, and how short-term memory just is completely and utterly muddled. And yet she knows who I am. It's not like an Alzheimer's where she's forgetful and not recognizing herself. She knows who she is. She knows that certain things, but other parts of the story just don't fit anymore. And it's a sad little storyline, and I'm not exactly sure how to play it. I don't want to keep giving her the sanity checks because when I do, then she says, "Oh, so maybe I'm going a bit mad." And I sort of joke with her and say, "Well, maybe things are getting a little bit lost. The details getting a bit lost." And then she'll say, "So maybe I'm getting forgetful. Maybe this is all just a made-up story." And then the next moment she'll be back into it with some other thing that makes her sort of all crystal clear again. And it's kind of, you don't know where this is going to go. And also, I don't know when I'm going to see her next. It could be that one day we just get a phone call and she just passed away in her sleep, which would be a kind thing to happen. But she's sort of hanging on there. she's waiting. She says, this thing's gone on for very long. So she knows that this is like 2 or 3 months of lockdown already. And here's Ray coming in. Just let me let him in quickly. She says, I don't know when this is going to be over. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you. How's it, Ray? But then also, she slips in and out of this. It's quite a sad thing. And I guess somewhere along the way, this may very well be the future for many of us. I just hope that we end up in a space where we loved and cared for, and not sort of put out to pasture somewhere. There must be hundreds of elderly people who are just sort of wasted oxygen, seen as, because this modern Western idea of aging, there seems to be no value in age. It's almost as though this is the garbage that needs to be disposed of. You've had your useful lifespan, and now you may as well just be sort of put out there and outsourced. And it's amazing how we outsource things that are so dear to us, like family. We'll just package people up and go and pay somebody else to wipe their bum for them, and out they go. I wish that I could bring Mom to the farm and keep her here. It's just this terrain that you see behind. It's just not conducive to somebody who's blind and in a wheelchair. And we wouldn't be able to get the staff here. So it pains me a lot to put her out there. But how do we take care of people? And this kind of system doesn't resonate. I love the Indian system where there are these extended families and life sort of divided into these little partitions. There's the kids up until about the age of 13 or so. They're just babies. Somebody needs to take care of them. Then there's the sort of those young adolescents up until about the age of 26, from about 14 to 26 or so, 25, 26. They're the ones that are making the babies, and they're a little bit lost. They haven't sort of found their way in life yet. And then there's those from 26 until 60. They're the money makers. They're the career-oriented people. They're the ones that are out there getting all the money and everything. And then they're the 60-year-olds and over, and they're the ones that are sort of the placeholders of wisdom. They're very cherished in the family. And they're the ones that are interacting with the little ones. They're the babysitters. And they're passing that wisdom on, and there's this kind of spiral recycling, and they live in 2 or 3 floors of the house. Value judgment, I know, because not everybody does that, but that's the kind of that model where the family live on the upstairs and the elderly ones live downstairs because they can't navigate the steps so well. And eventually, as you get older, you go from the top floor down until you're in the granny flat underneath them. But you're part of the family. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any comments. As always, if you have a comment, want to say something, just plonk your hand up. Pam, let me see if I can unmute you so that you can just say. Go for it. You'll just have to press your spacer bar, Pam. That's the easiest way to unmute yourself. There we go.
Okay. Well, I'm living in a retirement village, and can you hear me?
Yes, of course we can, clearly.
And we are simply being parked for our protection. But it really means that the sort of authorities are trying to get rid of us. Okay, we don't want to get ill. We don't want to take up medical facilities that are really more used to other people. But here there are so many wonderful, worthwhile people. And they are longing to get hold of and cuddle. We don't have the touch. The married couples, yes, but even between us, each other, this is what I'm missing, this circle of friends.
Yeah.
That was a monthly hug. It was great fun.
It's worth traveling so far to come for a monthly hug, Pam. We miss you too, dear.
Absolutely.
So I get that, Pam, and I also, we're a funny species. I mean, in America, which kind of jokingly I call the land of litigation, because anything that you can litigate for, you just do. And so sometimes if you watch Judge Judy on one of these reality TV things on DSTV bouquet, you'll see how ridiculous some of those lawsuits can be. But you know, because of long before social distancing and long before coronavirus, there was this almost need to be hands off with anyone else that you don't know, who don't have a personal, intimate sort of connection with, because it was seen perhaps as sexual harassment. And so touch-free world has sort of come out of America, and the Brits have never been huggy, feely, touchy kind of people. Latin America is the world of that kind of touch domain in a way. The Italians are all touchy and huggy and things. And I think we've lost something very dear to our to human interaction, don't you think, Pam?
Absolutely, yes.
I wonder where the virus... Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, I think I'm the oldest of the lot here, but what about other people? You can't get hold of their grannies, or they used to have so much interaction with their family, and now, well, we are being very obedient, but at the same time, we're being turned into a community of fear. September is going to be terrible.
Yes.
That's nonsense.
Yeah.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But what are we going to do about it?
So as soon as we can, Pam, we're gonna pretend that you're a rugby ball, and we're gonna chuck you into the middle of a big hug scrum, and there you're gonna stay until somebody sort of scrapes you off and kicks you to touch.
I look forward to that.
One thing you said though, Pam, is you say that you feel almost as though it wouldn't be your due, your right, to go to a hospital if you caught this coronavirus and take up a bed. That worries me a bit. How come? Sounds like you count yourself redundant.
Not really. If I get ill, yes, I do want to be cared for. But I seriously don't want to be stuck into a ventilator, being cared for by faceless and anonymous people, or are they even people, in the safety gear. I think this is too awful. And you die alone there. Your family may not come to touch you, to speak to you even. For goodness sake.
Is that a worry?
We've not got unlimited minutes.
Is that a worry?
So I am doing everything I can to stay healthy all the time.
I don't have that fear of dying alone. I don't know how I would want to die. I don't know if I want to just make that a private affair and just sort of go through the experience myself somewhere in my bedroom, or if I would want to be surrounded by people who loved me. I know that when my dad was dying, after years of being estranged, it was one of the most incredible times ever in my life to sit by him and just hold his hand and watch life ebb away. It was almost, there was something miraculous in the way that unfolded, and the way we found reconciliation and closeness and folded away the past, even though we never said a word to each other in those 8-10 hours.
But you did. You communicated. You communicated with him.
Yeah. Pam, this is going to change. The world around us might change, but we're going to come out of this, and we're going to come out of this stronger. And I hope that all of us go back to simplicity in this, that we don't go back to those erroneous values that seem so shallow. You know, I think last time around I said something that kind of stuck with me. It was like, you can't eat your Prada. These damn shoes, what value do they have if you can't, or you can wear them around your apartment, around your house, but that's not where the value is. You have to be walking up and down in the shopping mall, having other people deeply envious of these red shoes with the bows on the back for them to have any value. And I hope we come out of this in a more simplified way with this ability to touch and to feel and to be close, and that we treasure this more than anything else in life.
Oh, yes. Yes. I also think now we have a great problem ahead where the children in school who do not have access to electronic learning because their schools don't, or they don't have enough money, versus the haves. We've got in a possibly bigger divide than we ever had before.
So,
There's a problem.
There was a minor victory on, I think it was Friday, where DA had taken the ANC ruling to court, to the High Court, Constitutional Court, I think, and the judge ruled in favor of the DA, saying that some of the terms of lockdown were just unconstitutional, and that the ANC had to amend those. They were told to amend those forthwith. And that was around NGOs feeding the poor, those who are unable to feed themselves. And so there is some change, but how this is going to be interpreted and set a precedent for other change, we don't know. But I wanted to, I made some notes here about some stuff that I wanted to chat to you guys about as well. And Clement will understand this very much. And this was about monitoring, because I see, whilst there's all the issue of lockdown and this fact that we can't touch each other, and that there's all the drama around all of this, one thing that is becoming more and more of a growing concern is this thing called contact tracing. And in the spectrum of contact tracing, changes are being made. Google and Apple, both in the past week, said that they have made changes to their operating systems in terms of unlocking certain restrictions that had been put on this technology called Bluetooth. Now that seems terribly innocuous. So it sort of pricked up, it sparked my attention. I thought, what changes have been made to Bluetooth that we don't know about behind scenes in these devices that we've got, you know, the cell phones that we have? So I went on a bit of a super sleuth with that. And I guess most of you won't really know so much about the technology. I know Clement would be au fait with this, but we've got a couple of things built into a thing like the cell phone. So if I open the cover of my cell phone and then I close it again, you'll see that there's that 11:31, the time pops up on a display. But I can pop my cell phone right out of this cover, and there are no wires that connect this front display to the cell phone itself. And you kind of think, how does the cover, which is just a piece of plastic that has no wires or contacts on it at all, pick up the time from the cell phone itself? And that comes about because there's a thing called RFID in this cell phone. And RFID, we all know of RFID, but you've maybe not known about the term RFID. If you've been to exclusive books, say for instance, and you go and buy a book and you bring it home and you open up the book, you might find that there's a little plastic strip stuck somewhere in the spine of the book, and it's a millimeter or so thick, and it's stuck in there. Or maybe there's a funny label that seems to be quite a big sticky label on the front cover somewhere, and it seems to have an aluminium backing to it, and you think, what is this about? And that's an RFID tag. Any goods in a shop that are of high value are tagged with RFID, and then when you get to the door, the entrance and exit to the shop, there's like a hoop and a rubber mat, and these kind of two hoops, one on either side. And you think, what is that? What is that? We know it's a security thing, but how does that work? And what does it do? How does it know what parcels I've brought into the shop because I might have bought some things at Woolworths, and how does it know if I'm taking something out of the shop that I haven't paid for? And that's all done with this thing called RFID. What really happens is that those hoops that you walk through have a conductance field. It puts out an electrical charge. And this stimulates the little tag inside the goods, like inside the book. And just for a moment, it energizes it enough for that little thing to go beep and to give a unique identity. And then the charge dies. And the sensor picks up that little tweet, the little bleep that thing had sent, and it's a stock code item, and it goes quickly to the systems at the back of the store, and it says, is this thing paid for? Has a transaction happened where this stock item has been registered? And if it is, it allows you to pass. And if it hasn't, it sounds an alarm and security comes and checks your bag. And if you've got 50 million items in your bag, it can deal with 50 million little tweets at the same time. It's clever enough to do that. So we've got RFID. That's how this thing works. This cover has an RFID tag in it. And every time I close the cover, there's an RFID hoop built into my phone. And my phone knows how to read that RFID tag and give the time to the little chip, which then displays it in the plastic cover. So there's all these little bits of communication taking place. There's RFID talking. So every time I go in and out of a shop, that shop has the capability, whether they do it or not, I don't know, but it has the capability of pulsing my phone, and my phone's RFID sensors will give the store a piece of information. It'll give this thing called MAC address. And the MAC address is a unique identity tag that says this device has entered through this security portal. So they know that I've come into the shop with that. If they put up a Bluetooth sensor somewhere in the shop, and these are location sensors, you can go and buy them if you're a shop owner. It just is a device that you put into a light bulb or leave standing on a counter somewhere. The moment you enter into that shop, if you've got Bluetooth on, your phone will try to connect to that Bluetooth device, and they will do a handshake backwards and forwards to try and establish connection. They won't necessarily pair with each other, but if you've given location services permission inside Google, saying that Google can track your location at any time, then it is taken as default permission for this Bluetooth device to talk to your Bluetooth server on your phone and to exchange your location and where you've been and a couple of other things while you're in the shop. Also, Wi-Fi knows that you've come into the shop. If you're hunting for Wi-Fi things and we think, wow, it's very generous for a shop to give us free Wi-Fi. What do they get out of it? I can understand a coffee shop giving Wi-Fi because that you go there and you sit down and it entices you to buy some coffee and to eat something in the shop. But Wi-Fi in a bookshop, why would that possibly be? I'm not going to hook onto the Wi-Fi while I'm in a bookshop browsing for books. That seems a little bit pointless. But it's there also so that they can track you. And so there are multiple ways, just with the phone that you've got, for people to be able to track your presence. And they won't know that it's necessarily me, Tom. But what they will know is that this unique MAC address, this device address, has gone from shop to shop. Vodacom knows where it's going because some of those signals go back via Vodacom. And before you know it, there's the spider web of tracking that's taking place in order to know where I go. And if you go onto Google and you start looking for this thing called location tracking technology, and it goes under an acronym which I'm just looking for here. It's LBS, location-based services, it goes under. If you go and do some Google searching under location-based services, you'll find that it's sold in a benevolent way, in a useful way. They'll use it lots in hospitals, for instance. Every single X-ray machine has location-based services put in it. So when that X-ray machine is moved from one ward to another, because it's a mobile X-ray unit, the person who comes in contact with that machine will probably have an RFID employee tag, and that machine will register that this person touched the machine, that this person was connected with the machine for how long, and moved it from one ward to another because of location-based services. And so you can track where that machine has gone, and you can track who interacted with it. And all of those things seem like very useful, and perhaps they are very useful bits of data to have. But what's happened now with both something went somewhere. What's happened with iPhone and Android over the last couple of months, but just released and announced over the last couple of weeks, is that they fiddled around with Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is now allowed in its handshake, even though you do not pair with that Bluetooth device. The operating system will now share a lot more data, ostensibly for contact tracing for coronavirus. So without even loading an app on your phone, if you've got Bluetooth on, you're already, wherever you go in the future, you're going to be tracked by these devices, and they're going to know your whereabouts, which shops, where you've been, how you've moved about. When you get, if I come close to Ken, and Ken, I have my phone on me and Ken has his phone on him, then by Bluetooth, those two phones are going to talk to each other. And if they can't talk to each other by Bluetooth, then they'll try and talk to each other via Wi-Fi. And if they can't talk via Wi-Fi, they will try to talk via RFID. And so where is this data stored? Now, there's two models that are happening around the world here. The one model is that the information is simply kept on my phone. This is the UK model. The UK, I think it's the UK model. The UK model is that whoever I contact, their MAC addresses will be stored on my phone. And if I become coronavirus positive, I nearly said HIV positive, but coronavirus positive, then what I will do, the moment I call for help, I will have to reveal who I am, and that I'm now infected by the virus. And then that my MAC address will be highlighted as a hotspot, as a flag red. And that address will be sent to everybody else via an app or via the what do you call these, the carriers, the network carriers, so that on Ken's phone, his phone can see, did I come in contact with this MAC address? I don't know who the person is. I just know the MAC address, but I know that on such and such a date, at such and such a place, I came in contact with an infected person. And I have a sneaky feeling that this is already a breach of trust and privacy. So Britain has already got away with it, and a lot of countries are starting to take that model. It seems like Commonwealth are taking the model of contact tracing through data stored on the phone. Other countries, especially in Asia, have taken a different model. They've taken these MAC addresses and they've forced them to be moved up into a database. And on the database, they're being tracked there. And so this is another layer entirely of being able to track that MAC address from one location to another. And I just have a feeling that we're being schmookled into something here. It may have very good benefit for us right now, in that it may limit the spread of the disease, but later on, I don't know what it's going to morph into. And these things tend never to go away. They tend to put their hooks out, and they tend to stay, and they tend to become invasive. And because we're driven by fear, and Pam, you were perfectly right when you said that fear drives us in this process. It's very much so. And because of the fear of mortality and future and getting back to normality in some way, very many people will stick their hand up and say, I'm in for this. I will allow myself to be tracked. And yes, it's a fair thing and it's for my own safety. But once we've gone that step, nobody ever takes it away again. And that becomes the new norm. And Clement, you'll know how obsessed we are in this world of what we call big data. We are recording data about everything. The latest BMW cars, by the way, have sensors in the seats. Lots of motion sensors that are built into the seats. And these sensors talk via the car to talk with the engine management system of the car. And if you haven't moved around enough in your seat, then what it will do is it sort of predicts that you've fallen asleep. And so therefore, it pops up on the management console of the car that it's possible that you might be in jeopardy of not concentrating properly. And then it will alert or slow the car down, or it'll do something with that car, shudder the steering wheel in order to wake you up and see what your response to that is. But once the data is in the seat, it's very easy for the car then via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to transmit that data back to BMW's database. And that's what they're thinking of doing, to see how to make seats more comfortable. But then they can track me. They can track where I go, what my location service is about. Am I alert? How's this car going to know about me and need to know about me when it's autonomously driving on the road, needing to talk to every other car that's also autonomously driving on the road? And I don't know how you guys feel about privacy, but I think it's the kind of last bit of me being human that's left. And I don't really know that I want to give away my soul and have windows in on the soul. By the way, backtrack a bit, that location services thing is not only about this device. This device is nice if you carry it, but most people nowadays have Bluetooth rings, they have wearables, watches and things. All of those will do exactly what your phone can do. So if you've got any wearable, some of these new smart glasses that can look in, see what you're looking at and everything, they're all potential tracking devices that can snoop in your life. Even your TVs nowadays have voice activation that sends those voice commands for interpretation up to Google and Microsoft and Samsung and everything. How we tracked, I bet you, we tracked in ways that you will never even believe possible right now. And it worries me, and it worries me big time. Don't know what your thoughts are. And I know Ken has some thoughts about this, I'm sure. Clement.
Tom, I was...
Oh, Ken, yeah.
Sorry, Clement can speak, it's fine.
Go ahead, Clement will come next.
I think what is quite interesting, Tom, is that, Professor Johari in his books, Homo Deus and Homo Sapiens, speak about this whole machine learning, artificial intelligence. And I think the coronavirus worldwide has just escalated this time span. I mean, he speaks about 2030 plus. I think everything has become forward at least 10 years. Yeah, so that is scary. I just want to share.
Whether they're aware of that. Hi, Tom, your mic's off. Can't hear you, Tom. Are you going to sign language, Tom? Yeah, so just I was just touching on the point of privacy and freedom of choice and yeah, my view is that especially in our age group and perhaps in our career area, in the area that we work in IT and that, personal information is a big thing. And for a lot of the younger people who are on social media and that, I don't know if they're unaware or if they've made peace with the fact that their movements and their decisions and that are in the cloud and in big data and being shared. And I feel that I haven't completely adapted to that, which is why I've never had a Facebook account. I'm not on Instagram. Occasionally you peek and see what's going on there just out of pure curiosity, but it's not a part of me, and it's not some way of perceiving reality as much as it is for a generation who carry on with it and sit and watch people on YouTube talking about their lives. And I'm always fascinated by the way that they can talk at a camera, realizing there's millions of people on the other side, but in essence, you're in a room by yourself. And the way that they carry themselves is a level of comfort. Right now, speaking to this camera to you people is strange for me. I don't do it on a daily basis. Even when at work, our meetings are not video on. So, you know, for us, we're not comfortable with that. I think there's a generation who is more comfortable with that. And there's a type of thinking which is we haven't, whether we're over the hill now and we can't pick it up, or whether we need to practice it, that'll come. So I just this morning went to the shop briefly without my phone, and it was an odd thing because we've taken this tool to heart. It's fantastic for being in contact with the world and for managing things in one place, and it's convenient. But that's another thought I've had around Corona is, you know, should we not take more serious thought around leaving your phone behind? Yes, it's convenient to have it. You may need it in an emergency, but for more than half of my life, I lived in an era where I didn't have a phone. I moved around, traveled by train, went great distances, went to campus, carried on with my day without being able to phone somebody at the drop of a hat or being reachable. And who knows, we might actually, because there's a lot of things that we're going to change in ourselves and in our small circles from choice, by choice. And perhaps one of those choices is, if you're not going to be doing something where you know somebody is going to have to get hold of you, you're not responsible for being reachable, is to take longer periods without this device and see where that takes us, where that new normal is going to be, because a lot of things are going to change. I love the saying, whatever your 5-year plan was in 2015, you were wrong. I love that saying. It's brilliant because it's absolutely true. We don't know what next year is going to be like. So there's a lot of fresh ground here for us to start saying, well, how do we want this normal to be for ourselves? And that is the first change we'll make before society changes. Yeah.
I so agree. And sorry for that little glitch. Suddenly Zoom said to me that time was up, and then it started to convert the recording, and then it wouldn't let me in. And then after it had converted the recording, it sort of forgave me and allowed me back. Yeah, I agree with you, Clement. And you know, there was a time when you could take the cell phone battery out and you knew that that device was dead. Nowadays, you can't take the battery out anymore. And so the on and off switch are just virtual switches. Even if you turn your device off, how much of that device is still powered up and how much of it is still alive and will be alive in the future, I don't know. You know, so you can buy now, I saw them in Switzerland, you buy these little bags, and they are they're Faraday cages, really. It's a little bag with a drawstring at the top, and you pop your cell phone in there, and then nothing can get to read the phone. No signal gets into the bag, and no signal gets out of the bag. And maybe if you want to start a business, maybe there's a real business to think about investing in. Yes, Aidan. I can see you sticking your hand up, Aidan, but I can't hear you. There you go.
I'm just giving thumbs up to Clement because he's accurate.
Oh, I see.
Sorry, now I'm a personal message to say he needs coffee and cookies.
Oh, I see. Yeah, tell me about the cookies. You know, I said to everyone that she needs to make the tradition of still catering for the circle with cookies, and I'm missing Pam's cake and stuff like that. We'll get around to all of that sooner or later, I guess. Any other thing on anybody's mind? I was curious. Yeah, Clement?
Sorry, just briefly, and then I'll shut up. And again, I want to touch on this point of I mentioned it last time. You know, we're in this spinning vortex where we don't know what the rules should be amidst this pandemic, and you know what's good for society and what's good for the individuals, because a number of us need contact. It's important to us. It's ingrained in our sense of reality. I've spoken to one or two people who can't stand the idea of hugging strangers. It completely bugs them. They think it's the worst thing imaginable to bring somebody you barely know into your personal space. And I understand that. And I think, perhaps judgmental of me, I think it's a little sad that you don't value personal contact. But again, that's my choice. And, you know, we've been through 2 months now where we've adhered to the rules of social distancing in the interests of the greater good, which is fantastic. But at the same time, if Corona is not going to go away, if we're going to keep catching it and having to rely on our immune systems, and we've now negatively impacted our immune systems by cutting ourselves off completely from all germs, exposing ourselves to the risk of catching the first thing that comes along, there's an interesting thought.
There's a very interesting.
But now, for me, we've passed over into a phase now where, whether it's a South African thing or it's a global thing, where people are starting to go, well, we kind of want to move on now from this, you know. So I know of people who have met up, and it's the strangest thing, met up surreptitiously behind a garage for a cup of coffee in case the cops spot them. That just, it's the saddest thing. But they've now chosen to hug their friends again. Because, and you're taking a risk. You're putting each other at risk. You're putting the people you come into contact with at risk. So,
it's like all those.
It's
like all those things we did at school behind the shed.
And after school. Wait, sorry, I just want to make is, I think this new norm has got to be, you've got to make up your own mind which risk you're willing to accept. That to me is where I'm moving my thinking into, is I've got to decide what risks I'm willing to accept and then open up that point to the people I come into contact with. Are you one of those people who's afraid of a hug? And we perhaps got to make that a norm, is that I've got to openly and comfortably be able to go, can I give you a hug? And it's just the way of greeting is that we're saying, how are you doing? How's it? Can I give you a hug? Yeah, no. And off you go with your day. You know, so that you respect each other, and I can get my bit of pound of flesh, and the next guy doesn't want it, doesn't get it. You know, that's the type of thinking I'm thinking, is we've just got to start communicating and accepting the response. Thanks.
That's a really cool thought, that Clement, about mitigating risk. And by the way, next time you see me, I've got a couple of extra pounds of flesh that you can get a hug from as well. So, Ray, nice point. Ray's message that popped up there about humans being the new gold rush. Just elaborate a bit. Still not, Ray. You'll have to sign language us or type. No problem.
Is it coming through?
Yeah, now we hear you.
Yeah, it's strange. The speaker wasn't working.
Oh,
So very interesting with privacy now. So when I was trying to log on today, I was going through my Safari browser. Now, for privacy reasons, I clicked off block all cookies.
mm,
So when I had that setting, it's a nice setting with Safari. It's very easy to use. So you just click it and it does block all cookies. With that, I could not log into Zoom. It wouldn't let me. It would not let me log into Google either.
wow.
So I had to turn those off to get in, and what I wound up doing is just going to the phone. So it's really something how they track us. One of the books that I'm into now, it's called Indistractable. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but they talk about the neuroscience that goes into getting our attention and keeping us online. And the way that it's designed with apps like Facebook, TikTok, and others is to be just as addictive as gambling. So there's a psychological hook. It brings us in, we get pleasure, and then we want to go back, and they draw it just to our attention span. And it's fascinating. So another good person is Chris Bailey, and he writes a blog, and it is The Productivity Experiment. But Microsoft did a series of studies, and what they found is this, is that if you have your phone by your computer, what happens is that you will not work focused for more than 40 seconds. And if you have Skype running on your computer, you get about 35 seconds where you just concentrate and you can focus. So what it's doing is it's changing the way that we pay attention. And it's kind of unnatural for our brains when that comes out. So apps like TikTok and Facebook, I mean, they're specifically designed to be addictive, which it's quite scary. So what I was saying about the digital privacy and being aware of is that apps like TikTok will pay social influencers $500,000 a day to do stupid things online. One day you can make $500,000 if you are a top social media influencer. That's a lot of money to throw around. So naturally you have everybody just going like a gold rush, trying to be influencers or make money and whatnot on the side. So the Chinese government also owns TikTok. So your information that gets put up on there gets shared with the Chinese government, who keeps a file. And that scares me. What Clement said about being a little bit of an older generation, or safeguarding our privacy, it's really something I think about. I'm sensitive to giving out my information to other governments, let alone my own governments, which there's rumors that they keep files on people that maybe are as deep as a terabyte wide, if you believe some of the conspiracy theory books. But my point is that the way that we interact with the world now, it's very different. And that awareness, I think, that we have with other people that are in our circle, it becomes very important. It's maybe a little bit like the intention that we set. So, for example, all of us here are talking about this now, and we're aware that we'd like to stay, connected and maybe be authentic in a way. And that's kind of our group vibe, but there's a lot of other groups that are in a very different space. And yeah, those things can have real problems. But I think my big point is that your attention is valuable. It's wired into a neuroscience. So the things that we do, we're sort of like it's like we're all part of an experiment online, and we're participants. What would you call it? So we're volunteers, whether we want to be or not. We don't have a choice. So if we get on a platform, Facebook, which I haven't been on for months because I don't trust it, but I had to go on today to watch a concert, and sure enough, when I was on there, how long do you think I was on Facebook for? And I thought I would just log in and log out. I was there for about 20 minutes, and I thought about joining a different, a platform for yoga or something. None of the stuff that I needed. So our attention is what's most important. And here's what they said in the productivity experiment that I think is important is that the quality of our focus reflects the quality of our life. And that's kind of my takeaway that I'd like to leave you guys with is that how well we focus on what we do, it really has a deep reflection on our consciousness and ultimately our well-being, because in a way it's unnatural to be dependent on your telephone or your cell phone. Neurologically, we're not set up to do that. So yeah, be careful. Be careful what you click for, you know, because I guess your life may depend on it. So
Ray,
thanks.
Ray, just
Yeah.
give me that book title again.
Indistractable. I'll give you the title. I have it on Audible. I'll forward a link to the group.
Cool.
And it's the same guy. Yeah, he worked on, I forget the name of the book, but he's famous for working with the startups in Silicon Valley. I can tell you just now. I'm going to pull up my titles. But it's really good because he actually has a manual that goes in there about keeping focused and sort of the methods to do it. And it's got a takeaway which I really liked. So it's definitely it's pretty practical. I'll share it with the group if that's okay. It'll take me just a second to pull it up. I don't want to waste everybody's time.
Cool. Thanks, Ray. Yeah, it sounds very
Okay, you're welcome.
And Ken, you'll know, just following on from Ray, you'll know about state breaks and how dangerous they can be, because we get into a state of flow. And we are at our very most creative and marvelous selves when we get into that state of flow in terms of productivity, in terms of performance and everything. And you just have to have one little thing that breaks that state, which obviously the buzzword is the state break. But cell phones are notorious for that. And both Ken and I sometimes smile. He smiles at Marina and I smile at Yvonne, because both can be really stuck with their phones. And it's amazing how absorbed those phones get one into that space, and almost how antisocial they can make one. Also, just following on from what Ray said about cookies, Aidan, I think it'd be impossible to do a cookie blocker for you, my friend. Shall we leave it there, guys?
Right.
Thank you, Pam. Keep well. We love you.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Love everybody.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Thank you. Bye.